If a place geared towards family entertainment ever lets me drink, I'm gonna do it.
There are 186 things to do at ChuckECheese's. I know.
ChuckECheese, home of the iconic Charles Entertainment Cheese and notoriously a spot where a kid can be a kid, surprisingly bounced back in the early 2020s despite having a devastating first year. If I was in a private equity firm, I would be absolutely delighted, but as a grown man-child who loves themed entertainment, this burned me.
Summer, baby!
Okay, this is supposed to be B-roll footage, but like, what on God's green earth is this dog shit logo? Where the hell are his eyebrows? It's like they took the minimalist rebrand of every fast food restaurant and put it to a rat. You can't fucking do that.
Over, but the fun never stops at ChuckECheese. Come here.
I guess the only reason I'm so upset is because, although they are succeeding as a company, they're not succeeding as the company they once were. All the assets they're selling off makes it virtually unrecognizable from what you, your parents, and possibly even your grandparents knew growing up. I see a lot of people in the fan base much knee-deeper than I am complain that they're shutting down locations, but this is something that simply had to happen. Prior to COVID, there were 537 locations open, and we have now dwindled to 465. But when you're nearly $700 million in debt, it is only logical to get rid of locations that are not bringing you profits. That's what running a company is. My main gripe with the people at the helm right now is the fact that they seemingly don't care about their weirdly devoted fan base online. I promise you, if you do any level of digging to this company, there is a Disney-like devotion to the IP. And it only keeps growing with the advent of things like Five Nights at Freddy's coming into the mix, making a bunch of people interested in animatronics. So naturally, they got rid of them. I won't talk about this too much because there's many people in the space that have done a lot better job covering it. I'll put some recommendations in the description below. But one thing you do need to understand is that the number one novelty that separates this from any other place in your local area is the animatronic bands. Sure, you could take your kid to this arcade, but I guarantee you would have a lot more time and arguably better food if you took them to Dave & Buster's or any laser tag joint. Sure, you could say that they can go watch the band on the screen walls that they've installed, but I guarantee you the Wiggles probably put out better quality content. Yes, I'm sure that your kid would love to bounce on a trampoline with ChuckECheese for a subscription service, but Urban Air's probably doing it better. Those fuckers got roller coasters. All that considered, the number one thing that alienates ChuckECheese from its competitors is the fact that even though they dropped their tagline, where a kid can be a kid, they still only cater to kids. Every other place that I just mentioned, you can have fun with the entire family.
Well, ChuckECheese is leveling up for us grown-ups.
Yeah, the company has launched Chuck's Arcade. It is an adults-only spin-off featuring classic games like Donkey Kong and Mortal Kombat, plus modern hits like Halo.
Damn, Charlie. Not bad. But I still think this is some bullshit. I mean, don't get me wrong, I think it's a great step in the right direction, but it still has a little bit of that alienation that I was talking about to the original ChuckECheese franchise. It does some things very well aesthetically, but when I read the rollout, I was way more excited, thinking I was going to get something that actually pushed the bar to what this franchise could be. Unfortunately, it seems like a lackluster Dave & Buster's. I see you're trying to give the fans what they want by adding back animatronics, but when you don't have them animate, they're just creepy-ass statues. I'm not animated right now, and Lord knows I look creepy as hell. Look, I digress. I have a little bit of respect for what the company's doing with these glorified mall arcade slash bastardized Dave & Buster's, but the fact of the matter is they just aren't cutting it. This isn't the first time they've ever tried to capture an older audience though, and my mind just kept pulling to one name. Wolfman Zapp. By far the most ambitious thing I think the ChuckECheese company ever tried was not just a family entertainment place geared towards older people. This was a full-blown 21 and over bar. I think the beautiful irony in this is, although it is the ultimate fan service, which I absolutely adore, this was without a doubt something doomed to fail. No one in their right mind is gonna go out to drink to watch an animatronic wolf sing songs, unless your name is the guy making this video right now. Now, barring the novelty of an animatronic, I actually do think it's pretty groundbreaking that as early as the 80s we had the concept of the barcade, something a little oversaturated nowadays. But what still makes this even more interesting is that Nolan Bushnell, the founder of Atari, is actually talking about how he believes that arcade games are inherently social and ought not just be for single individuals to not socialize. It's no different than staying home and playing a video game at that point. It's just like going to get a coffee. You do it to get out when you have a coffee pot at home. Okay, so I'm not going to lie, I was super interested in the concept of Zapp's Bar and Grill, but I could not for the life of me find any information about it. This is why this video was so interesting for me to make, because not only does this double as a lost media video, but also, with nothing else to go off of, I'm getting very imaginative with what I would want to see in a spot like this. Linked in the description will be a lot more resources to the things that I found of Zapp's Bar and Grill, but I'm going to stick with this article that I found because it's definitely the most interesting and seems to pack the most punch. ChuckECheese builds a better mousetrap. Boy grabs a beer and plays a game of pool. Girl munches on a salad and racks up points on Q*bert. Boy meets girl. That's the variation on the oldest game in town that Pizza Time Theater now hopes to cash in on. The folks who brought you ChuckECheese wanted to bring single people and other young adults to get together under one classy roof. To do that, they shut down some unprofitable ChuckECheese units and turned them into a new kind of game emporium called Zaps. Zaps is a combination bar, restaurant, arcade, dance hall, and high-tech wonderland. It's got Dragon's Lair, Pole Position, and Pac-Man, and it's also got pool tables, backgammon, and risque videotapes in the men's and women's bathroom. I tried to find any historical context I could for that comment, but I literally couldn't. I have no idea what that meant. Maybe that's why it got shut down and erased. Pizza Time Theater spokesperson John Porter says that Zapp's concept was partially prompted by Bushnell's experience with his first video game, which he started out in a wine cask in a Silicon Valley tavern. There have been arcades, and there have been bars, but the two haven't been put together very well, Porter says. Zapp's covers a lot of bases. We see it as another entertainment niche. I think that quote's hilarious because, yes, it's absolutely an entertainment niche, but it's also like a funny because it's true type of thing, because the downfall of ChuckECheese right now is playing to the fact that they have zero niches. They're just doing everything everyone else used to do or does currently, but like slightly shittier. The article then goes on to say that they plan on opening up a third location soon, meaning at the time of this article there were only the first two. So at this point in the company, they were still just experimenting with the concept, and only if that went over would they lead to a full chain around the country. They also had intentions of doing modular chains, so things would adapt for the location that they were in, i.e. bigger dance floors here, bigger dining rooms here, bigger arcades here. The article then closes out with a pretty interesting mission statement for Zapp's Bar and Grill, which is not to be a singles bar, but a multifaceted place where early adults can find basically any itch they need to scratch. If they want to dance, if they want to drink, if they want to watch an animatronic wolf sing songs to them, you know, the normal shit. What's interesting is, although it sounds like it's a gamble in the article, they sound really, really optimistic, so it's so bizarre that the company just seemingly disappeared out of nowhere. This is the latest photo that we have of Zapp himself, and even that's debated. We don't know what location it comes from. They couldn't even find out who owns it. All they know is that it was found at a parade in 2015. I really hope eventually the fanbase can find closure on something like this, hopefully through an interview or a lost show tape, or maybe just some leaked plans, but from now we don't really have any information on it, so there's unfortunately not a lot to talk about. But as I said earlier, this is such an interesting idea that it did nothing but let my mind wander for the last few weeks. And all I could think about was, if somebody gave me the keys to this kingdom and let me make a bar that's themed for adults, what would I do? Well, let's look at what we have right now. Of the places in the themed entertainment realm that I've been sloshed at, there's always one of three types. Number 1 being a place geared towards families that makes me feel guilty for being drunk there. There's number 2, which is this has a lot of fun stuff to do and is geared towards adults, but the theming looks like absolute shit. And then there's 3, a place that is really cool looking, is geared towards adults, but there's very little to do. An example of number 1 would have to be something like where I'm at right now, the Rainforest Cafe, where yes, you can sit there and get drunk smack dab in the middle of Disney Springs and be in utter euphoria, but after you've had your second Jack and Coke, you see the eyes of families walking in, and you're the one that's dampening their PG experience by being a drunk guy. This is probably not accurate to what they're thinking or feeling, and you're not doing anything wrong. They built that bar for a reason. But still, it really just doesn't feel like the prime place to have as a third place, or even a place to go have a good time for the weekend. Ironically, I'm sitting here thinking to myself this could also apply to ChuckECheese, seeing as they also sell beer, which does make it pretty fun when you're taking your niece and she's freaking out running over all the arcade cabinets, but any other time, it's probably not ideal. The other type of place I'm talking about is something like Penn's Mechanical Co. or any type of barcade that you have in your local area. They're really fun, but they look like shit. I can't stand this industrial look that really serves no purpose other than to just save some dollars. I really think the reason I don't like it is because it doesn't really tell a story and it lacks a color palette. It's just boring. It's like the broccoli of themed entertainment, if you could even call it that. The only thing I will give it is that the pinball machines themselves are so beautifully themed that I could honestly make a whole video about them. They're mini theme parks. Look, man, if people think it's classy because of the mid-century look, by all means they can have it, but I really don't care for this, and I never will. I will still frequently visit because it is a really fun place to go to. Hell, I had my bachelor party there. But in my hypothetical adult-themed entertainment spot, we're gonna creatively go pretty far away from this direction. That leaves us with our third spot, which is by far the closest thing we have so far, which is pretty much anything Meow Wolf touches. This Snapchat you're seeing right here is the first reaction I had to walking into Area 15 in Las Vegas, immediately thinking that I genuinely was not cool enough to be at a spot like this. I'll talk about Meow Wolf in a later date in more depth, but what I want to focus on right now is when I was lost at Omega Mart in Area 15, and I stumbled upon a door that said employees only, but if you know anything about Meow Wolf, this was an Easter egg, and sure enough, when I opened it, it was a speakeasy. This was a hell of a thing to stumble upon, especially because I was visiting Meow Wolf on my 21st birthday. Now, unfortunately, once I was in there, it felt like that was the prize. There didn't seem to be a lot in there to really do. Now, I very well could have missed something, but it really didn't feel like it. However, I have seen the Cowboy Heaven, which is the bar and restaurant based in Meow Wolf, Denver, which seems hands down like the closest thing that I'm talking about for what I would want at a spot like this. The characters that are in the band and sitting at tables within the fucking bar is fantastic detail. I love the interactive jukebox. I love the look of this place. I love the fact that it's just smack dab in the middle of Meow Wolf from what I understand. Everything about this checks a whole lot of boxes with the exception of things to do. That's where I would change quite a bit. But even then, there's still plenty of Meow Wolf filled Easter eggs where you can call a number that's written on a bathroom stall door, things of that nature, and you'll get something right back. It's truthfully the closest thing to like what I would want for a neat themed adult place. So here's some ideas I had. I think one thing that ought to be utilized more, especially by Universal Studios during Halloween Horror Nights, is Five Nights at Freddy's. Yes, they've done walkthrough attractions, but how fun would it be to actually go to Freddy Fazbear's Pizza? I think it would be cool if you had it during the daytime where kids that still are into the franchise could go and visit, and then during the night, you have it a little more 21 and over, and maybe even make the theming darker. How cool would it be if there was like a game almost to where you have to be quiet or you have to conserve power or else you will get repercussions from the animatronics themselves. This is all just spitball talk, but I do think that the IP of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza ought to be used, especially during Halloween time, by somebody. I think what I would do would be something similar to what the Rock-afire bar tried to do, where they had an original Rock-afire Explosion band perform at the bar. I think it didn't work because in the area they had, it was just a little bit too niche of a subject for people to want to go frequently, and you don't really generate income that way. So what if you made a bar that was so good that people wanted to show up, but you still had things littered throughout where the nerds would want to show up and still have a good time? This is why I think that you take an animatronic or maybe even a mechanical puppet and utilize it kind of like they did on Craig Ferguson. Now, what's the guy behind the mic operating this puppet gonna do? He's gonna run karaoke night. The character itself is not gonna sing songs to you because adults don't really care to watch a mechanical character sing to them. But what they would love is to be introduced by a robot or an animatronic that would hype you up before you got on stage. Karaoke will always be a thing. I don't care if it's a guy named Dale who runs his table. People will show up. So why not make it the most fun karaoke you could ever have next to Rising Star, the one in, Universal City Walk in Orlando? I think this is great. I don't know why somebody hasn't done this before. If they have, please link it, because I feel like I'm sitting on a gold mine here. One thing I think I should mention is that in my ideal space, we also have the same theming that Meow Wolf has, because I still think they're fantastic at that. And then we're also going to add the arcades and fun attractions that Pins Mechanical Co. would have. I know this is like a $100 million investment tops, but I still think we can get this going. Should I start a GoFundMe? Look at this. I'm ranting about ChuckECheese, and all of a sudden I'm doing a business proposal. It's getting late. We should probably get home. How about I give you a ride? You look like you've had one too many.